Knuckles Comic Issue 2. Knuckles wakes up in the morning with water being splashed at his head, being captured by the Dark Legion, being personally brought to Kragok to talk to him alone. How delusional is he that he thinks Knuckles would ever want to work with him? Especially with his eyes and his untrustworthy expression. What, is it just because he's an echidna? I mean, I'm saying want to work with him because this is the way he's treating him, like trying to be all nice and sweet talking. Knuckles gets unshackled so that he can sit down properly and is warned that Kragok's men will take action against him if he tries anything. And instead of immediately hearing what he has to say, we're dragged into the past once more. And honestly, look, I find the past stories equally as interesting, but there's gotta be a less jarring way to transition. If this was a TV show, it'd be better because they could transition with a blurry fade-in and a harp sound or something. In the past, we see a fire ant Mobian holding a torch telling his queen that the situation of the echidnas is getting worse. The queen says something we already know very well, that the echidnas have appointed one of their own to act as a safeguard for themselves and their own technology. And the ants decide that the reason the echidnas are having trouble enacting the bullshit law is that echidnas are in charge of enforcing it, for some reason. And they send an ant of theirs to Dimitri's brother to teleport to him as an aid while he's considering adopting a disguise to inspire and raise people's spirits. What, does he want to dress up like Superman? I must be a creature of light and hope. Getting a little too egotistical there? I thought Dimitri's brother was supposed to be more of a nice guy. I imagine him to be a lot more humble than that. At least this is kind of developing his character past that. Also, it's pretty annoying how I still don't remember what his name is when I really should. I hope they'll remind me. The ant guy says that their enemies already have the cloak of secrecy, and that they need to try to look more like the good guys by being honest. The ant then somehow knows that his son is in grave danger for having discovered the truth. What, do ants have invisible security cameras all over the city? Why would they care so much? And what truth? All I did was walk into sort of assembly. The glasses ant then has the balls to say that all the echidnas are being useless. Well, that came out of nowhere. Naturally, this causes Dimitri's brother to run off, saying that now is the time to act. What action could he possibly take to make this better? He must be really desperate. Meanwhile, Knuckles the hothead shows that he's predictable by immediately trying to attack Kragok the minute he was unshackled, even though he was clearly told the consequences. And since I doubt he's planning to murder him right then and there, what's the point of attacking him? Especially surrounded by his men. I don't know who's stupider, Knuckles right here or Kragok for unshackling him in the first place. Why would he care about being polite by letting him sit down properly? I actually smiled and chuckled at Knuckles' remark here. Kragok tells him that he totally doesn't need his guards to handle him, and then Knuckles just asks, "Then why are they still holding me, head? Not sure about him saying head twice though, that makes no sense. Kragok angrily asks him where the Chaos Chamber is, while electric sparks seem to come from his cyborg eye in the top of his cloak for some reason. If he can summon electricity at will, why doesn't he just try to torture the information out of him with that? Instead, he sends his men to fight Knuckles for it, and predictably they all get defeated. Knuckles then takes one of their costumes as a disguise, explaining that all echidnas are roughly the same size somehow, which is how he was able to wear it. I'm guessing by this he means provided that they're in the same age range, because we know younger ones are shorter. And he has no problem doing this because Kragok ran off instead of staying right there or joining in on the attack. If he had just stayed put, Knuckles would have been screwed, because he would have been right in front of him, so he wouldn't have been able to get away with putting on a disguise. We suddenly cut back to the past, where some Dark Legion members are wondering if Dimitri's nephew could have survived the crash. After he gets himself killed or something, somehow fighting them, and Dimitri's nephew naturally shows a lot of survivor guilt at this, the glasses ant teleports here at exactly the wrong time, saying that he's here to help. Really? If you're here to help, why weren't you there to use your fire breath to save this guy? If he knows exactly where to teleport, why doesn't he know exactly when? Why did he do it at the wrong time? Then Knuckles reunites with the Chaotix in his disguise, and knocks out some of the guards, fortunately with the writers letting him put his hood down rather than having Espio continue to believe it's somehow a trick and having a long dragged out pointless fight. And then Knuckles says that they need a diversion. Charmy suggests using that chariot over there. Why didn't he just say tanks? That's clearly what it is. Why would a kid growing up in a modern society even know what a chariot is to the point of assuming a tank is one, instead of not knowing what a tank is? Was that supposed to be funny? Then we see Knuckles' father watching Knuckles pointlessly through a camera monitor relate to how things are turning out. Archimedes then teleports them easily, so I guess his teleportation range isn't as limited as I thought. That seems too easy. Knuckles' father is somehow not surprised by him showing up and was impatient for him. And then the alarm goes off, and Knuckles' father says that in all of his haven's existence, it has never been penetrated by an enemy before. By the way, he's now wearing white instead of his old black cloak. What's with the wardrobe change? Did he decide he liked his brother's outfit better? Well, his enemies are also wearing black cloaks, so I guess he doesn't want to associate himself with them. Then it turns out the guest was actually Thori. Oh, so he cared enough to show up now, but not when Bunny and Antoine were imprisoned in your own favorite crater. How did Thori even know there was trouble here and that he should show up? He did know why Knuckles was coming to him ahead of time, so maybe it's his clairvoyant skin. Probably the same reason he didn't help Bunny, because he knew she'd be just fine escaping without him. Well, either he has clairvoyance or the Ancient Walkers do. We cut to some members of the Dark Legion talking about how they're going to be told to move out soon, with one of them relatably being impatient about how long they've been arbitrarily waiting. Then some tanks come in and cause an explosion, but Knuckles and his friends are already running away from it. Wait, what? Who was manning the tank then? What, did they control the tank with their minds? By the time the explosion happens, they're already running away from it. Maybe if this wasn't a series of still images, I would have a better idea of what was going on. While Knuckles and his friends make a break for it, Thori has my sympathy by complaining about his rebellious grandson, saying that he has some nerve coming up here, insisting that he's still paying for the consequences of him being selfish. How? What consequences? Naturally, Archimedes breaks up the argument, saying that he's heard it already from being around them so much, and just says that if Thori's here, it must be important. Then some floating head ancient walkers teleport here, saying that it is indeed important, and irritatingly confuse the hell out of me and everyone else by teleporting away with Thori saying to consider this their warning. Well, that was pointless. I agree with Knuckles' father here. He has every reason to find this annoying as hell. Thori, why'd you even come here if you don't want to help? And why even bother to warn them if you won't tell them what you're warning them about? This is ridiculous. Just consider this a warning. That's it. That's the worst warning ever. And speaking of pointless, I'm starting to feel like, or at least I was starting to feel like a couple issues after this. I'm starting to feel like the Knuckles father watching what's happening sections are pointless. I mean, he hasn't really done anything, he's just commenting on the situation like a distant observer. Archimedes is in a hurry to return to Knuckles, worried that he'll think he's abandoned him, not being aware that Knuckles has so many friends with him that he hasn't even noticed he's gone. He complains that even his own father found Thori annoying. But sadly, he's completely ignored by Knuckles' father, who insists that his wisdom is more important here, even though Knuckles could really use a fire breather on his team right now. And if he values his wisdom so much, then you'd think he would trust his wisdom enough to let him go with Knuckles. Oh, Edmund! That's Dimitri's brother's name! Anyways, we cut back to seeing Edmund's son in the past, working out and then getting an education, mastering the sciences as well as developing morality. Wait a minute! Science? I thought the kid banned science. Why is he allowed to learn about it? And not to mention, I never heard of Knuckles being trained to master science and philosophy. Man, they really downgraded the whole Guardian training process as the years went on. As a reward for all this making him supposedly a better Guardian, even though you only should really need to be strong to guard something. I mean, you don't see bodyguards in real life learning everything about science and philosophy to be a better Guardian. Anyways, he's shown the Chaos Chamber as a reward for all that, which reminds me, I guess Edmund didn't die because I could have sworn I saw in a flashback earlier that Dimitri's brother went on to become the first Guardian of the Emerald. So, huh? Did he not really die? Is he actually captured in a stasis or something and gets brought back to normal or something? Anyways, Edmund's son is told that his past and future is here. Why his past, though? And all he has to do is believe to channel his energy into the Emerald. Why would he need to do that? It's not explained right away. Then he's led to the base of operations for him and his future Guardians, the place where the technology was abandoned. Okay, what? But they couldn't swore off technology, so they think it's bad, but not if a Guardian is using it. Well, hypocrisy around this does make sense, as the whole concept of banning and hating all technology is extremely stupid. So logically, even people trying to follow and preach that concept would want to find any exception they can if it suits them. But I'd be happier if they just stopped trying to give lip service to a concept they know deep down is bonkers then. The annoying thing is we don't even see him point out this hypocrisy. We didn't even see him complaining about being taught science when echidnas are against science now. We then come back to the present, where a bunch of trees are destroyed by Kragok chasing after Knuckles and his friends. Vector is about to idiotically give up, saying he doesn't care if it kills him in the process, purely because he's fed up with running. Chill, Vector. I don't see that as being in character for Knuckles to say. Sonic is supposed to be the one talking all informally. Knuckles wouldn't use teenage slang, he's too serious. Then Knuckles orders Mighty to finally take advantage of his supposed super strength to cut down a tree, but of course this was a vain attempt, as Kragok can just burn it down with his tank. Though I don't really mind, as Knuckles was in desperation with that plan. And seeing as how he's often considered to be an idiot, it wouldn't make sense if all of his plans were smart and flawless. And the story ends just like that, as Knuckles shouts to get out of the way, and we see a bunch of civilians running from a fire. Oh man, I was hoping the comic had retconned that random non-echidna civilians were on Angel Island and forgotten all about them. It's about time they showed up instead of their being affected by the invasion being ignored. But seriously though, why are non-echidnas living on Angel Island? The only story of this issue was written by Ken Penders and Kent Taylor, and it could basically be summed up as Knuckles gets briefly captured and then escapes from the Dark Legion because Kragok was stupid, and spends the rest of the issue running from his forces. Meanwhile, we see a disappointing and unfulfilling follow-up to the past story that seems to have nothing to do with it because we don't see the Dark Legion in it very much at all. We just see Edmund confusingly getting killed or something when he's supposed to become the first ever Guardian, while his son is trained to be the first ever Guardian. What are the ants doing, trying to get him to learn how to kill all of the civilians who don't want to lose their technology with the Emerald? This story doesn't have much to say about it. The only really big annoyance that stood out to me was how pointless Athari and the Ancient Walkers visiting was. Why the hell weren't they just upfront with them instead of giving them a very vague and useless warning? This story was certainly interesting, it held my attention just fine, but I feel like it's more of an in-between stories issue, where the real action only happens after it. It left me feeling unresolved. I almost read the story after this right afterwards.